ASU goes into Iowa State and is up by 4 at halftime, but then gets outscored 49-24 in this second half, and yet another disappointing loss for the Sun Devils men basketball team. And we'll unpack it all on this episode of Locked On Sun Devils.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Sun Devils, your daily Arizona State podcast, part on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Parker Porrill, and I'm joined alongside Phil Mulford. And thank you so much for making Locked On Sun Devils your first listen today and every day. Phil and I, we're both massive ASU fans, if you can't tell, and we've got a lot to talk about in this episode. But before we do that, this episode is brought to you by Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. And Phil, if we both saw a basketball game this weekend. We were both texting throughout it, and it was ASU Iowa State. For some reason, when these two teams play in basketball, whether it's men's or women's, it's an entertaining game, but this time around wasn't as entertaining in the second half, and it's yet another second half collapse for a Bobby Hurley basketball team.
Yeah, this is one of those times when I'm kind of happy that I'm busy as the game is happening. I got to be like watching on the box score, and then I go check out highlights later because there's a lot to like and there's a lot to hate. On the one hand, somehow this team was shooting 60% from the floor in the first half. Anyone, this is not me saying I don't think Arizona State can shoot 60%, but any team shooting at that clip is insanity. Hurley had him whipped out. They were playing well. But also, they shot 60% from the floor, and they were only up by 4. So that's not great. And then the best part of the second half, I think, actually was the Fox Sports comparison, the double Hurley cam of both Hurleys getting mad at the same time. So yeah, that's where it is. I do expect fall off in the second half. I mean, we've talked about how thin ASU's roster is. How really you have maybe one or two subs. They're very hampered by injury. But to only, I think it was, I took a look at the score with 10 minutes remaining, and we had dropped 4 points in just 4 points from halftime. I don't know how you go from that. Go from 60% down to only 4 points while Iowa State is just running over you.
I'll tell you why, and this really comes into the difference between Iowa State and Arizona State as tournament teams. And that's because Iowa State is and Arizona State isn't. Iowa State only committed 9 turnovers. Arizona State committed 23. That's the difference between a team who can make a run in March and a team who can't. Because let's face it, Arizona State was playing like a tournament team in the first half. They aren't a tournament team, but they were playing like it. But then in the second half, you mentioned the injuries when we were texting back and forth during the game, and it really showed because when this team struggles, they start to commit more injuries because they lack depth and they start to get panicked.
Yeah, we actually, I know we're talking about the 60% in the first half and how bad the second was. Overall, we shot better than Iowa State did, 47 to 44%. But you mentioned turnovers. So the big number here, ASU attempted 43 shots. Iowa State attempted 23 more shots over the course of this game than ASU did. That is, and we weren't helped out by like a triple technical like happened in the Kansas game. That meant that even though ASU was also in a similar situation where we weren't getting as many shots off, hey, the fouls were helping us out there. We didn't have access to that, but I mean, in fact, we were the ones giving it over, right? Hurley with his 2, but yeah, 23 shots difference.
Yeah. And another thing to add to that, a good litmus test for any ASU basketball game is how the foul shot game turns out. Because not only were they outshot in the second half, but also the free throw game. If Arizona State is not sent to the line more than the other team, there's a 90% chance they are not going to be on the winning side of that game. And each team was sent to the line 22 times, and that is not a recipe for success with how successful this Arizona State team is with getting to the line, because we saw how crucial that was in the Kansas game. The whole reason Arizona State beat Kansas was because of their ability to get to the line. And I know there was some turnover business with Bill Self getting kicked out of the game and then getting tossed, and another technical thrown in there as well. But when Arizona State gets to the line, they find success. But they were getting greedy with the foul game, and they were sending Iowa State to the line. And it doesn't matter how efficient each team was shooting the floor. When Arizona State doesn't get to the line more than the other team, they're not going to be on the winning side of a game.
So I wasn't able to watch this live. As I said, I caught some highlights, watching the score line. The vast majority of these turnovers that ASU was committing, they were getting the ball stolen from them. If you look at the stat line at the end of the day, it's 16 steals to 5. You watched the game. Was this our point guards being really sloppy with the ball? What led to just this, I don't know, disease of butter hands that we seem to be experiencing in the second half?
I mean, it's kind of like what we've been seeing for ASU this entire season. It was a little bit of sloppiness, but this team gets rattled. They were up by 4 at halftime. They were in a sense of comfort. It's what we saw at the start of the first half, or start of the second half, against Kansas, where they were in the lead. They felt comfortable. Iowa State, they were ready, and they were poised out of halftime, and they started to cause some issues in transition. Once ASU crossed the timeline, they were hounding them, forced some bad passes, forced some mistakes, tipped it when it got to the interior. They were all over Jop. It wasn't just one thing. Like, I wish I could just point and say, Mo Odom needs to pass better, because that's not the case. He was passing fine. It was everybody was hounded. All the passing lanes were clogged. There wasn't one particular thing that ASU could have done better. It's just cohesively as a group, they could have slowed things down and dissected Iowa State better. It was overall just a poor adjustment from the Sun Devils.
Or acknowledge that Tamin Lipsey was literally committing crimes on the street. 6 steals. You lock him up for petty theft. That is fair. And that is kind of in this issue this year. You talk about this Kansas game. We were very lucky in the Kansas game that we had a 20-point lead at half. So we were able to actually win that game, even when it a little bit flat out of the half. I've generally found Hurley, like, over the history of his tenure here at ASU, to be this guy that does a really good job of whipping his team up out of the half. And it's maybe sometimes more they start to flag as injuries happen, or they start to be a little overconfident, chuck up bad shots. But this year, for whatever reason, ASU, down the stretch, even in these even games, they fall apart in the last 5 minutes. But again, I can excuse that. Legs are a thing. But they've been coming out of so many of these halves in winnable games where they're very upset minded, just so flat, Parker. Now, I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's just Bobby Hurley has a specific way of, he does a really good job of figuring out what the opponent's going to do and calling plays in the first half, and then the coaches get to sit down and answer the way that ASU likes to play that day and shut it down. I don't know if it's the team getting overconfident, but this is not the first time this season that we've seen this.
It is not, and it continues to happen. But I'll tell you the good news, Phil. It is March, so anything can happen. We can see some craziness happen, but I'll tell you 2 things that I saw from this Iowa State game that need to be fixed as we head into March and head into the conference tournament, and that is offensive rebounding. Offensive rebounding has been atrocious for the Sun Devils. There's plenty of sots from Bobby Hurley talking about how bad rebounding has been, and not to beat it over the head again, but once again, offensive rebounding has been a massive struggle for the Sun Devils. Even tracing back to the Kansas game, which they won, Kansas had 25 offensive rebounds. They had 55 rebounds to Arizona State's 43. In this Iowa State game, Arizona State got out offensive rebounded 12-4. And you add to that, the second point that Arizona State needs to work on is obviously the turnovers, but limiting steals. Iowa State, I know they're a steal-heavy team. You mentioned petty theft. Well, how about like Grand Theft Auto? I mean, they had 16 steals to Arizona State's 5. Arizona State They need to work on crashing the glass. They need to work on just fundamental rebounding. It's rare that I see them a quality box out on offense, and we need to start seeing that more on the offensive end, and they need to start limiting turning the ball over because you can't do that in March. If you expect to beat Baylor upcoming, and I know we'll talk about that in tomorrow's episode, but if you expect to beat these high-quality teams in neutral site games, you can't turn the ball over, and you can't give away free possessions with offensive rebounds.
You can't, but, bad day for ASU. Bad day for ASU basketball. We're going to take a bit of a journey here over the rest of today because we got some interesting, probably neutral news. I'm not sure if we can say it's good or bad. And then some great news a little bit later on. For now, there was a big White House summit roundtable that went a little bit longer than expected on Friday. Some news about what may be happening for the NIL, and we'll dissect exactly what that might mean for ASU in just a couple minutes.
This episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy, as we welcome you to the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft, with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number one pick for the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft. With the number one pick in the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft, I'm taking grape. It's Concord grape flavor. It's similar to grape juice or even candy. It has a consistent, straightforward taste and a classic purple candy style finish that always has me going back for more. And a sleeper pick I have in this draft is Hawaiian Breeze. Feel the breeze, taste the caffeine. Made with passion fruit, orange, and guava flavors, it's sweet yet smooth, tangy yet tart. 5-Hour Energy Shots give you a boost with zero sugar. Find your new favorite flavor of 5-Hour Energy Shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. This episode is also sponsored by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners for this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about us on Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hire? That's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
And if you're joining us every single day, make sure to go check out the Everydayer Club. It gives you ad-free access to every episode, gives you a special Discord, members only. Parker's there, I'm there, and because March Madness is happening, we're running a bit of a bracket challenge for men's and women's March Madness. I have not filled out my bracket just yet, but I'm going to be doing that very soon. If you win, overall, you get $100 of Locked On merch credit that you can go spend on shirts and hats and other things to show just how awesome you are. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I'm going to win, but if I win, second place gets the prize. So it's going to be a good time. But Parker, as we move forward into this, there was a big summit at the White House on Friday. And the big news out of this is twofold. One, the president wants us to move away from this NIL model. Just shove, as I saw one article say, put the toothpaste back in the tube, go back to pre-NIL era. He's going to write an executive order. It's going to get sued. This is what the president was saying. It's going to get sued. Hopefully we get a better judge this time. The other news, and we'll talk about both here, is that lawmakers on both sides are looking at enabling conferences to come together to collectively bargain for television contracts. So it's not going to be the Big 12 anymore, maybe with the TV contract and the SEC. It's maybe all colleges together could have one big collective TV contract. We're going to have to see how that goes if that passes. But those are the two big pieces of news out of this. Parker, first question, is it possible to put the toothpaste back in the tube?
Not fully, and not immediately. I mean, with how crazy it is right now, if you fully say or executive order rules from the Supreme Court and say nobody can get paid, people are still going to get paid. It's going to happen under the table. There's going to need to be heavy policing, and then you have a bigger issue on your hands. There is no way that one ruling will change things overnight. And it's going to be a process because, let's face it, even if that's consensus, which I don't think there will be, because let's face it, we talk about the bad things about NIL. We talk about the bad things about paying players. There are a lot of good and positives, Phil. I mean, it allows for players to connect with the community. They put their body and futures on the line to play for your college, and you love to see them get reimbursed for that. But at the same time, you also hate to see those players go. You hate to see those players make foolish decisions with their money. Yet you hate to see your favorite players go to different school just because another school has millions and millions of dollars that you don't. There are plenty of problems with it, but there's also plenty of positives. And one thing that I do think that was interesting with some of the articles that I saw is how we can expect, due to the roundtable, the SCORE Act being put under the House of Representatives very soon. For those who don't know, it's called the Student Compensation Opportunity through Rights and Endorsements. It's a proposed federal legislation to standardize name, image, and likeness, which I think is what is the main issue. Putting the whole genie back in the bottle, that's tough. But adding a set of standards and checks and balances, some limits on what exactly you can get credit for and endorsed upon, and how much you can get endorsed for, and how much money you can receive. That's what I want to see out of these discussions.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I think we need to be looking more at salary caps and compensating schools if players get poached and things like that. I think it's also fair to say that going full genie back in the bottle actually hurts ASU by quite a bit. Because again, this is Locked On Sun Devils. It's nice to talk about the big picture, but the picture for ASU is that while long term, I don't know that any of this is sustainable. I don't know that Mark Cuban's going to be pouring tens of millions of dollars into Indiana every year to make them keep winning or whatever. Same too with ASU's NIL fund. Needs more money. Please go donate. But if we go back, ASU's not big enough. It's not a big enough brand name to be able to put shoecases duffel bags, maybe bigger boxes, whatever, of cash into players. Definitely freely given cars that they found on the side of the road. Alabama can, USC can, Oregon probably can, and they can get away with it. But for schools that are not like true blue bloods, it just means that we're going to be second-class citizens going backwards. I mean, again, there's as good of a coach as Saban is, we pretty much know at this point that these schools were paying these athletes under the table from the occasional scandals that came out. And at least now it's out in the open. And at least now we're all in roughly the same ecosystem. So as much as I personally hate it, going full back, just removing NIL entirely is probably going to be a pretty bad news for schools like ASU.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to try and work your way back to that. But the main issue that I have with college sports right now is, and we hear former players talk about it all the time, the lack of players that have stayed with one program throughout their career. That is the main issue, because if you've talked to any college athletes that have transferred, it's really hard to find somebody that just transferred because they outright hated their location where they were at. I mean, it does happen. I don't want to pretend like that's a rare occurrence. It's just more likely that they just get a better financial opportunity. Rarely is it, oh, I just couldn't stand X school, so I had to go to Y school instead. More likely, it's like, well, I was only making this much at X school, and Y school offered me money that I could give to my family, and I could just have a better life in the future so I'm going to go to Y school instead. And that jeopardizes their future because let's face it, we're seeing more and more players who stay at one school, who stay in college for longer. They have better careers. I mean, look at Indiana. They had the oldest school. They had the oldest by average player in all of college football. Their whole roster was the oldest by average, and they won the national championship in convincing fashion throughout the season.
I don't know that it's fair to say that they're having better careers. I think it is a more accurate statement to say that that for players that are good, but they're probably not going to do great in the NFL. They're saying I can go a couple more years here in college and I can maybe make not top line NFL money, but I can make better money than I would make in my rookie contract. And I can play in an easier setup because let's face it, you're not running into you play in Alabama and maybe 6 of their 11 on any line, on any offense, defense, on any program is maybe NFL bound, and that's a very good team. You're not running into 10-year NFL veterans every single time. The wear on your body is not the same. The challenge, everything is not the same, and yet you're still making, in this unregulated NIL model, you're still making a ton of money. So, I mean, this is why we're seeing Diego Pavia sue for more and more years. Trinidad Chambliss, the same thing. We got a guy coming back, actually, which is pretty exciting. A little bit of a different reason, maybe. But at the end of the day, they're saying I can make as much money in this, say, call it developmental ecosystem, as I can probably make in the NFL. So why wouldn't I do that? And
even Dante Moore. Yeah. I mean, when have you ever seen a potential second overall pick just say, I'm good.
Well,
I'm good in NFL.
In fairness, his playoff performance was so bad that I'm pretty sure that his draft stock, if he went to the draft, would have been a little bit lower than he wanted it to be. So
he might have went down, but still at the time, Mel Kiper had him as his number 2 quarterback off the board. He still would have made millions of dollars, in my opinion. But I get what you're saying. But it's just like, regardless of the situation, most outlets had him as a first round pick, and he turned it down to stay with another year at college. I mean, I know that we have available the amount of money that he's going to get, but how much more is he getting that they're not saying? I mean,
Dante.
it's a Dante. I mean, getting Dante. I mean, he must be making bank, because if you would have told me that decision that like 7 years ago, that the potential second quarterback off the board opted to stay in college to make more money, I'd have been like, what language are you speaking? What country are you in? What happened to the NFL? Did something wrong happen to the NFL? Did it foreclose on itself? I mean, what's going on?
Yeah, it's an interesting time. Hopefully the bill that means that you can have this one big TV rights deal. Hopefully, actually, I think that'd probably be pretty good. Maybe if they didn't have that, maybe if that the FCC regulation did not require separate contracts, maybe the Pac-12 never dies. Maybe we never see this super consolidation because it's just one big contract. That'd be kind of cool. But speaking of NIL, and speaking of players coming back for 17 million seasons, we just got news that Clayton Smith is going to be coming back for another year at ASU. Was able to retroactively apply a red shirt to his sophomore year. So that's big news, and we'll tell you what that means for ASU's roster in just a second. This is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's on screen. Yesterday, Caleb Larkin won the Big 12 wrestling tournament in the 157-pound division. Now, if you've ever known a wrestler, you know how much blood, sweat, tears, late nights, crazy schedules it requires to even make weight. And that's not even talking about winning the entire thing, winning the championship. Caleb Larkin reminds us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, that I never quit. We put the same passion into every model. Highlights make the real. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to Mazda because there's more to you. So as controversial as this NIL thing is, you still got to play the game. And Clayton Smith was just informed by the NCAA yesterday, I believe it was, as we're recording 2 days ago, if you're watching this, that he would be allowed to come back for another season. Of course, Clayton is on a defensive lineman for ASU. The last couple of years, very good one at that. But the big news here is that they're in the spring practice that's coming up next week. ASU is going to be trying him out as a tight end, Parker.
Yeah, we'll see how things shape up as practices go along. But more importantly, I think this shows how important Clayton Smith is to this Arizona State team. I mean, you have a veteran leader returning to the squad, regardless of where they're going to put him. I imagine he'll still take defensive reps, and what a beast he was on the defensive line throughout his career, all 3 years in Tempe. Amazing highlight reels. Had 4 sacks this past season, tied for 4th most on this ASU team, but was crucial in that college football playoff year. Had 33 total tackles and 4.5 sacks that year. I mean, you talk about defensive leadership being back on the team, how crucial that is for a roster at any point in time. And I'll point you to Clayton Smith. And we alluded to it in our last segment, how weird college football is, but isn't it a little weird that when he was at Oklahoma in 2022, he only played 4 games for them. They wouldn't give him the red shirt, but now retroactively in your last season, you could kind of go back and be like, well, hold up. 4 some odd years ago, you didn't give me that red shirt that I wanted. And I don't know how much Clayton Smith could have applied then and not heard back. We don't know those specific details yet, but isn't it like a little odd that the NCAA waits until now to just be like, oh, actually you can play? It just seems a little weird. Like and you also, it's weird for the players, it's weird for other teams, but imagine the coaches. Like, there's just a question mark on if Clayton Smith's going to be on your team or not heading into this point of the year.
And I think this is why well, first of all, technically Clayton Smith has an average of 15 yards per reception in his college career. So he's probably pretty good. 1 reception for 15 yards in 2024. But I think this is why they're looking at him at tight end, because he is a great athlete. Right, we've seen him be productive on the defensive line, but not Bobby Hurley. We're not talking about basket anymore. But Kenny Dillingham went out and got a couple defensive linemen to go replace him and shore up that line because you didn't know if Clayton Smith was coming back. So now you're in the situation where you've spent all this money on all this time and these roster slots on these defensive linemen that are looking pretty good, to be fair, coming in to ASU. And now you say, well, we got this guy. We know he's good. We know he's a starter on the defensive line. We know he's been incredibly productive. We got to find some room for him, because otherwise we've wasted some of our recruitment that now either one of them is not going to have a spot, or we're going to have to retool, get them to play a different position. It's just a little bit awkward.
It is going to be an awkward fit. It's going to be an awkward decision as well. Chris Cartman was the one who broke this news, and he added that Clayton Smith is seen as an athlete by the coaches, not just a player, not just can put him at one spot, but also said, and this is the key word here, that they're going to test him in offensive roles. I think this is more of a trial to see where he fits, because let's face it, Shimon Mateer, he's a big loss offensively. He is a massive loss. And additionally, we don't even know if we'll have him at tight end. Maybe ASU is trying him out for some fullback packages. Maybe they want to work the run game even more. I mean, there's no telling. Obviously, we know the hands of Smith are good. You talked about the reception earlier. I still imagine Smith gets most of his work done defensively, but there might be some special packages that we see him offensively that really just show off his athleticism as a whole.
I think that's fair, and it's ASU, I think, in particular. A lot of schools like to do this, but I'm going to talk about Kenny Dillingham for a second. They really value flexibility in their players. We've long had, you look back to even previous teams, N'Keal Harry in the Sparky package, just getting him the ball whatever possible. We saw everything they were doing with Cam Scattaboo last year, multiple quarterback plays. If someone played quarterback in high school and transferred to a different position, Kenny Dillingham he'll play it straight up in a lot of games if he can get away with it, but he loves his trick nonsense. He loves having some opportunity to put a whole, swinging door play in or something. So you get this guy who is built like a lineman, get him reps at tight end. All of a sudden, you're going to have maybe some weird stuff. Maybe he goes in and slots in the offensive line, declares as an eligible receiver, and, we get something weird. I would not put that past. I wouldn't put that one past Kenny at all.
Yeah, I would not put it past him either. I think that it's really something to see when you're at practices and you see the stuff they're trying out, like that never makes the light of day. Like last year at practices, I was seeing Kanye Udo just practice throwing the ball. And you're just like, oh, are we going to see Kanye Udo throw the ball? Now, Kanye Udo never ended up throwing the ball in a game, but it's just like they're working stuff out. There's just always the mad scientist Kenny Dillingham is always just like, all right, let's see how this guy can throw the ball. Kanye Udo told me he can throw the ball pretty well. We'll see if we can work him somewhere else. Now, we also won't see Kanye Udo throw the ball at all because he transferred out, but it was just something whenever you go to a practice, whenever you hear rumblings, you're like, oh, why is this person over there? Or is something going to be tried out? Is something going to be worked in? You don't know. It's always very interesting when you hear the reports at practice. Oh, somebody's trying over here. Are we going to see that? Or how much of it is a chess game? Like, oh, maybe somebody sees that we have this person over here and it's just a red herring for any scouts or people you're trying to throw off the trail. There's no telling. There's no telling.
Yeah, it's why this spring practices are going to be a little bit of fun. Speaking of which, there was some footage that came out of the spring workout happening this weekend that we'll talk about it later on in the week, but it just looked fun, man. They were having, I'm used to if I'm playing on a team and we're on conditioning day, it's suffering. Like you're sitting there, you're white knuckling the grass as you try to survive, and they just look like they're having a great time. Dillingham, again, his passion is infectious, but that's going to do it for us today. As we alluded to, spring practices are starting pretty soon. So tomorrow, as the week goes on, we'll start talking about that, the practices, the conditioning that's already happened. ASU plays Baylor tomorrow if you're watching this, so we'll break that down for you. And hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers and toes here if you can see on camera, hopefully we'll have more games of ASU men's basketball to talk about because they make a deep run in the tournament. Parker said earlier on that clearly we should have beaten Baylor. We should have beaten Iowa State we beat Iowa State in the first half. We beat Texas Tech. This is a waltz deep into the Big 12 tournament. Clearly, that's what's going to happen. But for now, thank you so much for tuning into Locked On Sun Devils and making it your first listen today and every single day. And if you do that, make sure to go check out the Everyday Air Club. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the sub button. It helps out quite a bit. Make sure you don't miss a single episode and let us know what you think about this whole NIL nonsense. Can the genie go back in the bottle? Parker and I don't think so, but I'd love to hear what you have to say. And if you're watching this live on YouTube, you're watching this on video, we're going to shoot you on over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel where they're running through us and a bunch of other teams, a bunch of other Locked On programs. And if you're listening to this on podcast, make sure your second listen is to Locked On College Basketball because it is officially March. Tournaments are happening. March Madness is soon. It's going to be a good time, and they got you all covered. We'll see you tomorrow.